So we're going to start off this little tour, mini tour, give you a flavour of the actual exhibition. So Robert, this I believe, and John Logie Baird was born first of all, Helensburgh, 1888?
1888, yes.
1888.
In Leicester Girl Street.
Okay. Anyway, over to this. This is what the first, well, it's called a televisor.
Yes. So, yes, this was the first televisor, which was the name at the time, Paul. And what it did was it would receive pictures from a transmitter in London.
Right.
Now, the item you see next to the televisor is a Type A Baird radio receiver, and that was required to receive sound. So that was a separate broadcast from Birmingham.
So they had to combine the two.
They had to combine the two. And the Type A radio receiver, I had never seen one before. But as chairman of Helensburgh Heritage Trust, we purchased this for rather a lot of money in 2023. And thankfully, we have an anonymous benefactor who contributed some money for that. And also some fundraising was done with the members.
So the first actual transmission of a face was back to what, 1926?
It does indeed. And we can have a wee look at that very face just in a moment.
Okay. Just one wee thing before we look at the face. There is a local rumour in Alexandria that Baird used the old Argyll motorworks, the peel factories we know it now, to do some of the experiments, because it was it was lying empty at the time.
Right.
And the idea is that the really first face was actually probably a real man.
I doubt if that's true, because when I tell you about the actual face, although this is a face, it is not a real human face. And there we are. We'll set that up for the next scene.
Okay. So you were saying it wasn't a human face?
Well, it was and it wasn't, Paul.
Right.
What the Baird had to do, because the amount of light required created such a heat, no human being could really tolerate that heat for very long.
Right.
So he had a series of dummies, and one of them you can see here is called Stookie Bill. So Stookie Bill was like I don't know actually what he's made of, but a ventriloquist dummy head, it says. And so I would imagine it's made from paper mache or something like that. So there would probably have been a fire risk. But that was the first face ever seen in a broadcast.
Wow.
In the UK.
So Robert, is this John Logie Baird as a boy?
Yes, it is indeed. And he was a pupil of Larchfield School, quite a posh school. Now part of the Lomond School in Helensburgh, a fee-paying school. His father was a minister.
Right.
And John attended Larchfield along with a very well-known entertainer of the early 20th century, Jack Buchanan.
Right.
Who was one of his close friends. And we'll see later in the podcast how Jack Buchanan actually helped Baird with some of the adventures.
All right. So basically, I was reading some things about this before we came along this morning.
Yeah.
And he didn't just invent, I guess, the precursor to old TVs. We wouldn't be watching this now if it probably wasn't for him.
Mm-hmm.
But he also said he went on to look at a large picture screen.
Yes.
A 3D television.
Mm-hmm.
A colour television.
Indeed. I believe he demonstrated
infrared as well.
Yeah, I believe he demonstrated the big screen thing, and I have a feeling it was a horse race in a cinema in London. Yeah.
Okay. So was televisor the word he used?
So I would think that televisor was his
brand name for it.
Yeah.
We first received, well, probably one of the first mentions of television, the word television itself here as well, 1928. I can see a poster here featuring Jack Buchanan. You mentioned him a minute ago.
Yeah.
He obviously was a big a big star at the time, was he?
Well, it's almost impossible to overestimate how big a star Jack Buchanan was.
Aye.
He was the archetypal kind of gent. He often appeared on stage in a very formal way with a top hat and tails.
Yeah.
And he was one of the big, I suppose, if you want a modern equivalent, he was a rock star, you know.
The Robbie Williams of his time. Maybe not.
Well, perhaps, the Cactus and Arab, I think maybe the Swab thing was superseded. But in those days, that was the real thing. And
so this is actually an advert for a television set.
Yes.
So people they were able to buy
television
sets.
There you go, 55 guineas, which was a lot of money at the time. So I would imagine that this particular advert was from the 1930s. Mm-hmm. And Baird had been a great friend of Jack Buchanan. Right. As I mentioned earlier, they went to the same school in Helensburgh.
Okay. So this is the actual apparatus that gave Baird his pictures.
Indeed. And there is a full explanation at the exhibition. It's on a video laptop and a monitor, which is quite appropriate because the video laptop and the monitor are direct descendants of television.
As is this iPhone I'm using today.
Indeed.
Film you.
In fact, another great Scottish inventor, James Clerk Maxwell, had a lot to do with the technology that goes into a mobile phone as well.
Hey, wow. So I was looking at the exhibition, obviously. You must come, by the way, look at this exhibition before it closes. There's lots to see here. We're just giving you a flavour of it. Of the flavours. He did have a jam factory, did he? Apart from doing TVs.
Yeah, that's right. No, he did. He went to Trinidad, right, and opened up a jam factory. Okay. And unfortunately, it was a short-lived venture because the insects, they never found an effective way of keeping the insects off the kind of sticky jam.
So there's a bit of protein in the jam, probably.
Probably.
Too much.
Indeed. There was also the Baird undersock.
Yeah, okay.
So Baird suffered from cold feet. And during the First World War, it gave him the idea for these undersocks. Right. And also that, you know, his thought was that there'd be a great relief for the soldiers serving in the First World War. And as you can see from the picture there, they had ladies out with sandwich boards advertising the undersock.
The exhibition is full of different things like components that made up the televisor or the television as it became, valves and amplifiers. But now we're going to talk to Stewart Noble, who is a guide and local historian. Hi Stewart, can you tell us about the time when the doll's head almost up on fire?
It wasn't just almost, it did happen, yes. One of the big problems that John Logie Baird had was getting enough light. And the result was that he had a whole network of light bulbs. And light bulbs, or the old style of light bulbs, gave off a tremendous amount of heat. And so it was very uncomfortable for people to sit under in front of all these light bulbs for any length of time at all. And so the result was he started using puppets. And the first puppet he had was called Stooky Bill. There were several of them. One of the very early ones, which I think we have right here, an original, the hair caught fire with the heat from the light. The other Stooky Bill that you can perhaps see down there, that's a modern replica. But you've got a good idea there of the problem that he had.
Didn't John Logie Baird electrocute himself at one point as well?
Yes, this was a year earlier. He did his first transmission, which was from one room to another of a workshop that he had in an attic in Soho in London. But the year before that, he'd had a workshop in Hastings down on the south coast of England. And again, the problem was trying to get more and more light. And so he wired up a whole network of batteries on the floor, connected them all up. And he said at one point, my attention must have wandered because I suddenly got an electric shock, 20,000 volts through my hands. And he said, fortunately, he fell over backwards, and that broke the circuit. But he then went on to say, electrocution must be a terrible death. And of course, this event was accompanied by an explosion, and his landlord was not at all happy. And so that was why he got evicted from the premises in Hastings, and why he then went to London, to Soho.
So I would urge anyone in the area to come along and see the JLB 100 TV exhibition here in Helensburgh.
And just the time, Stuart.
It opens every day, 10 till 4, and the last day will be Monday the 27th, when it will close at 4 o'clock.
So please do come along to the John Logie Baird exhibition in West Princes Street in Helensburgh. It's well worth a visit, and of course inside, Stuart and Robert will give you much more information on the day.